We come to Berlin, we American presidents, because it's our duty to speak in this place of freedom. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Welcome to the Fidelis Leadership Podcast, a place of learning for those who aspire to leadership excellence. Here's our host, Mike Etor.
Hortense Le Gentil is a world-renowned executive leadership coach, speaker, and author. She guides CEOs and senior executives on their journey from hero leaders to human leaders, drawing from over 30 years of experience working across various industries, including media, consulting, and advertising, and as an entrepreneur. Hortense has been ranked number 5 on the Global Gurus list by World Management Global Gurus. She is a certified Marshall Goldsmith Stakeholder Centered coach and a member of Marshall Goldsmith 100 Coaches. She's also a contributor to Harvard Business Review and ThriveGlobal.com and has been featured in Forbes, Fast Company, Inc., and Business Insider. She's the author of 2 books, and we're going to discuss her latest book during today's podcast. We've been trying to make this podcast happen for a long time, Hortense, and I'm so glad we finally made it happen, and I am thrilled. Thank you so much, and welcome to the Fidelis Leadership Podcast.
Thank you for having me, Mike. It's such an honor. Thank you.
Well, it really is. I think we've been trying to do this for 2 years now, and we've just been missing each other. All my fault, I might add. But finally, I have you here. And so the intro, I've really stalked you well on social media. You have a very rich background, and of course, my intro of you was 15 seconds, very short. So can you take a minute or two? What more do we need to know about you? Very unique background.
I think what you maybe not know is I am a former show jumper. So I was compete in show jumping when I was young, and it was all my life. The horses, how to communicate with my horse. I was working hard, try to win all the show jumping. And so it was my life, and for 20 years, something like that. 20 years or so. I was very, very passionate about that and the horses. And what I didn't understand at that time, I will understand that later, is it taught me everything about leadership and about communicate with others, because you are two. It's the only sport where you are. With a horse, with a being also. And then you need to communicate. It's all about empathy. It's all about, having clear goals, vision, knowing where you want to go, and try to understand, the horse and make them understand, make the horse understand, what you want to do, where you want to go. And so it was really my first love. My horse was everything for me.
Yeah. Where were you born and where did you grow up, Hortense?
I was born in Paris, and I grew up both in Paris and in the north of France, where my father was raising horses.
Okay. So that was the horse connection right there.
Yes, horse connection. It's all my family things. So my grandfather, my great-grandfather, great-grandfather, you said, right?
Oh.
Yeah. So it's a family thing, and it's beautiful.
Wow, very good. Well, I always ask up front a couple of questions just to clarify for the audience who may not have read about you prior to the podcast. What does your company do, Hortense? Who's your clientele base, and what problems do you help them solve?
So it's my company, yes. And my company is here in New York, and we are in the city. And I'm working with CEO and senior executives on their journey from being what I call a hero leader to become a human leader. And this is what I do. I do a lot of one-on-one. I'm also an author, as you know, and what else? And I'm a speaker too. So this is what I do.
Yes. Well, if I hadn't gotten you in a podcast and I ran into you in New York City on the subway and oh, there she is, and I could only ask you one question, what is your leadership philosophy? And you were getting off at the next stop. What would you be able to say to me? Very short, executive summary.
I am a big believer of human leadership. So, leading with humanity, care about people. Yeah.
Yeah, well said. We share that affinity as well. And I always ask the timeless question up front: leaders, born or made?
Made. I think made, because first I believe that all of us are leader, because at the minimum you are a leader of your life. So check, and then you do what you want with that. So you walk on it or you don't. And but all of us, we have to learn how to become, the leader we meant to be or we want to be.
Yes, well said. Well, I want to get into your book. And by the way, I've not read it yet. So you recently published a book titled The Unlocked Leader: Dare to Free Your Own Voice, Lead with Empathy, and Shine Your Light in the World. And so the first question I'd like to ask you is, why did you write the book and what audience is it aimed at?
A lot have been said about why we should lead with empathy. But when it comes to the how, Mike. And then during, I had a lot of experience doing that with, as we said before, with executive, and it's a process that I created and that works to help everyone to unlock and to become who you should be, and to write your own story. And for who is, the book, it's plenty of stories. And because, as I said before, everyone is leader of their life. It's for everyone who really wants, to become this leader and write their own story. But maybe, the first audience is, maybe business, but not only. I have plenty of young people who are, who read the book, and it can help everyone, because everyone can relate to that. And you will see in the book there are plenty of stories. It's not only business. You will find actors, you will find doctors, you will find sportsmen, everything. So I think it's almost everyone.
Yeah. Well, I didn't read the book, but I have read executive summaries that other people have written about the book and all that. And so I'd like to ask you a question and let you relate a little bit, a few words on each of what I think are some of the main concepts in the book. And I'll list them: identify mind traps, operate a mind shift, and achieve a mind build. And I know nothing other than that, what I've read. I know those are some, I'm not saying they're all the main concepts, but it appears, do you agree that there are some of the main concepts there? And if so, I'd like you just to elaborate a little bit on them.
Yeah, sure. So this is a process. So what I learned is you have to find, to follow a process to unlock yourself. So the first thing is to be courageous and to face your fears. And then find what I called a mind trap. So that mind trap. So where are you trapped? Where are we locked? So maybe we elaborate later, or should I answer now, as you want?
No, answer now. Okay. And if I think we should dig deeper, I'll ask you later too.
Okay. So the mind trap. So all of us at one point we are trapped somewhere. At one moment. And because what helped us, to go there is not going to help us to go, in the future. And so it's this moment, this sensation of, okay, I'm a bit lost. I don't know what to do. Or, it doesn't work like it worked before. Or I don't understand. I don't grow anymore, or I'm a bit sad, or unsatisfied, or that kind of thing that you can feel, and all the voices in our brain are telling you that kind of thing. And it happened to everyone. It happened to me 15 years ago, and I was completely lost. I was lost in my life, personal life, and I was lost in my professional life, because I couldn't do what I wanted to do. And then everything went south, and I went, sick in bed for months.
Wow.
And then, of course, I had time, when you don't want to see, but you know that you have to see, but you face fears because we are all human beings. And then something great happened in my life. And my grandmother, who passed away at that time, but, I just loved my grandmother. She was very wise. And she came, she visited me in my dream. So she came in my dream and she told me, you have to find the path of roses. And I told her what it is and where it is. Tell me. It was in my dream. And then she just smiled at me and she said, you know where it is. And she disappeared. So I was furious. She didn't give me the answer, right? But I will understand later that what she meant was very, very important. What she meant was listen to your inner voice. So don't listen to, the voices outside, the voices of authority or social, voices or whatever. And then when I began this process of freeing myself, so listening to my own voice, and this is what I write in the book, and this is a process, I began to free myself. And it works for everyone, in fact. But this is a process. So, okay, we are locked. We are locked somewhere. Where are we locked? Where are we locked? Where are we stuck? So you identify. Then you track the source. Okay, where is it coming from? So another example, it's one of my clients was years ago was considered to be the next CEO of his company. He was very smart, works very well, very successful, obviously. And then he had to, show up in front of a panel of other, leaders who were responsible for the process, as you know, how it works. And out of the blue, he absolutely didn't understand what happened. He changed his behavior. And he became very talkative. He talked, and he didn't listen at all. Then, of course, he didn't get the job because it was not exactly what we wanted in the plan. They wanted from him. And he came to me and he said, Hortense, I don't know what happened. I don't know. But obviously, he was stuck somewhere. So we revisited his life. And then he remembered that, like, can you understand? Years before. So he was a student and he had to pass an exam. And at that moment, so imagine he prepared for his exam. He was smart and brilliant, and he was there. And the teacher didn't let him talk. So he just didn't let him talk. So this young guy at that time lost his cool. He was shocked. What's happened? Why this guy didn't listen to me? And then the same teacher told him, young guy, I don't know what you're going to do later, but I can promise you one thing. You will never be a CEO because I can see all your emotions on your face. Then this young guy, who finally, of course, succeeded and passed, his exam, began his life with a trauma because he was very shocked, and with the idea that, he would never be a CEO. And anyway, if he want to have a chance, he has to, avoid showing emotions. So wrong. But he was not aware of it because he forgot somewhere. But in his unconscious, it was there. Then when the time came, for the first time, he was considered to be a CEO. And he was very young. He was very young at that time. Without being conscious, in fact, his brain reacted and said, okay, not twice. I'm going to talk, and talk. And I will not let you interrupt me. But it was wrong. But when it could, so we could go track the source. So the source was this conversation, right? And then what we have to do is, because here he understood that there were trauma and another voice. So then you go to the second part. So now you have your mind trap, you have your source. And then, okay, we can begin, the process of changing your mindset. So it's what I call the mind shift. So shift your mindset. And then with 3 questions, is it true? Is it relevant? And is it helpful today? What, the voice said. And of course, he said no, no, and no, because it's not, it's not true that he cannot be a CEO, and it's not helpful, and it's not relevant at all. And then you work on letting go. So you process, and so now you shift, you have your mind shift. So now you free yourself. Now you open the door to who you really are. You can listen to you. You can listen to your inner voice, and you can begin to write your own story. And you are the author of your life. This is it. And then you go to what I call the mind build, because now you can build your own story. So what is important for you? What are your values? How you want to show up as a leader? How you want to be remembered for? And what is your why? What is your driver? And then begin to build this life, this story around your values. And you do it in a daily basis. What I call the daily rendezvous with yourself is we have a lot of rendezvous in a day, but never with ourselves. And how important is it that we need to see if we are still on track, on writing our own story. So it's very fast, but this is this process, that I learn first with myself, and then, with my clients. And this is, what the book is about, and all this process of freeing yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And as you were relating that, of course, it all makes sense. Like you said, it's not hard in describing it. Now, tackling it, that's where it can be dicey. You reminded me exactly of a story, somebody very close to me in my life. She went to a very elite prep school for high school. Mm-hmm. Very elite, very, very elite prep school. And she wrote a paper in like an English composition class. And in fact, this prep school, she was among the first class. It might have been she was the second class of women at this school. It previously been all men for decades, maybe 100 years. And so some of the male professors were not happy to see the women at all. Mm. They were very rough on them. But she wrote a paper, and the professor called her up and said, I have been here, I think it was 30 years. And I have given 2 A's on writing assignments in 30 years, and you are number 3. This is excellent. Really praised her writing. Fast forward a year, she's now attending an Ivy League university. And she takes that same paper, she had a writing assignment, she takes that same paper and modifies it and tells the professor, hey, this is a second version of a paper I've written previously. That professor at the school, at the Ivy League school, gave her an F. And I said it was among the worst I've ever seen. I'm paraphrasing now. Hopefully you don't fancy ever being a writer. This is really bad. And it just shattered her confidence, like that young man. For decades, shattered her confidence when it came to the written word.
Whoa.
She went through the process, what you're describing. She went through it intuitively. Today, she's a professional speaker, a coach, and a multi-published author.
Oh.
But I'm going to ask you some questions going into it, but I wanted to relate this example first because it really hit home. I mean, she told me she was young, like this person, so she may have been 18 years old. And to get gutted like that, cut off at the knees, said, "This is terrible. You'll never be a good writer." First of all, who would do that? And secondly, it scarred her by her own admission. It rattled her confidence from teenage years probably until late 50s. Is when she finally decided, no, I'm better than that. Who is this person, one person to define me and all that? So I would like to ask you some follow-on questions, Hortense, about mind traps. I'd like you to, we've already, your example and my example, but I would like to have you clarify even further for the audience, maybe a little bit more on a mind trap and how it can limit a leader's performance. I think we're all prone to inflict those upon ourselves, but especially have others inflict them upon us. I think it's a rare human being that hasn't faced someone that said, you're really terrible at that. You'll never do this. You can't do that. Why are you trying this? So any additional clarity on, mind traps and how they can limit a leader's performance?
The problem is when we are trapped ourselves, we understand that it affects the way we connect with yourself. This is a story you just shared with me, with this woman who, in fact, she is a writer, but she didn't authorize herself to do it because of a teacher. Same, with the CEO, So it affects the way you connect with yourself because you don't see yourself ready, or you don't authorize yourself to be really yourself. And then we understand that very well, that if it affects the way you connect with yourself, it affects the way you connect with others. Because empathy starts with yourself. So if you don't know who you are, if you are not able to listen to your voice, if you're not able to talk your own voice, or write your own story, how can you be there for others? How can you understand others? How can you listen to others? No, you are too busy, trying to not being yourself. And then it affects who we are and what we are going to do when we are locked somewhere, and your behavior also after a time, being locked somewhere and when you don't want to move. Your behavior can also change, and you can become arrogant or angry or whatever. So it's because you are locked somewhere. So you have to have big look at that.
So am I correct in thinking and listening to you talk that the mind traps can come from two sources? Internal, we can put them on ourselves. And then, of course, external, other people can say and do things to us that could cause us to limit our belief in ourselves. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, it is. But, I think I found three families, but let's say two main family. The first one is a trauma, not overcome. So, something, I can come back to that in 1 second. And the second one is all the voices. So I agree with that, with what you say. The voices that the authority, community, social, for whatever around us, education, other voices that you hear in your life. And we are plenty of that. And especially today with, the social media, right? So we have plenty of that. You have to do that. No. So it makes us think we should do that. And then, yes, it's self-inflicted because also you don't listen really to your voice, or you try to not listen. In my case, I knew, for example, but it's not that I didn't knew, but it was hard. I didn't know how to do it, and then you completely. I got stuck because I got sick because of that. So it's all a process, but I would say two families. And trauma. So what I call a trauma. So if we go back to the example, I have a metaphor that I like to talk about trauma. Trauma, it's emotions that are not, at the right place in our brain. So imagine our brain as a house. So in your house, you have a bedroom, right? In your bedroom, you have your bed, right? So you put the furniture at the right place. In the living room, you have your sofa and things like that. Now imagine that in the middle of the living room, you have a car.
Mm.
So it's a bit complicated because, if you have a car in the middle of your living room, so if you want, to watch TV, you cannot really watch TV. If you want to talk with your friends in the other sofa, it's complicated with, the car. So the car is the trauma. And then our job, in order to be okay in our living room, so okay with ourselves, is to put back, the car to the garage. So it goes to the garage. And how you do that, by doing this process, because the trauma is something, or it's an event or a series of events would trigger high emotion in yourself and also trigger your sense of safety. So, for example, the examples that we shared, both of us, it could be, another student would not listen, for example, or will forgot completely because it didn't trigger, emotion. But in that case, it did. So it's a trauma and it's not overcome, because a trauma could be a very big trauma, as we know. So, something like the war, whatever, but also day-to-day traumas. And it exists. So long answer to answer your question. So yeah, two sources. Voices, yes, and trauma.
Thank you for that. And I think it's so apparent to someone like you, who's obviously an expert at this, but there are people listening to this episode, Hortense, and it's like, I think I might be engaged in a mind trap right now. Is there some kind of revelation that they will feel, knowing A, I recognize it, and B, I have to engage in what Hortense is calling a mind shift? Is there anything in common with people that happens to them?
Oh yeah, it happened to everyone, because last time I was speaking at the speaking engagement, and one of the person who was reading my book, she just came to me and she said, "Hortense, I found my mind trap. I know where I am trapped. Thank you." Because if you find your mind trap, if you're aware of it and you are courageous enough to go to the process, you free yourself. Your life is going to change. And it doesn't have to be in leadership. We are not talking about only leadership here. We are talking about connecting with yourself. So if you're a student and you just listen to that and you feel uncomfortable, for example, doing that or this person or whatever, think about it. Okay, where are you track? So maybe it's a voice. It's a voice outside, could be your parents also. It could be, the teacher, whatever. Because, for a long time, it helped us. The voices can help, because it's like when you learn how to bike, to ride bicycle. So when we were young, but I don't know for you, Mike, but for me, I had, training wheels.
Yes.
So I needed my training wheels because, you have to learn. So those voices, the education, whatever it is, it's going to help you. But at one point, if I keep, my training, wheels, I'm not going to go far. And no, I grew up now. So I have to look at that, just take off, say, thank you. You helped me. Thank you. I'm very grateful for that. And you continue, your journey. But you don't need you don't need them anymore. And it's not about to be angry about the person who said that or whatever. It's about tracking the source, understand, that the person, whatever, even if it's bad thing, like we shared, you don't know why this person said that. And we are not here to judge. This is not the problem. Don't lose your time with that. Make peace. That's all. Make peace and let go and continue your journey.
Yeah, thank you. Well, the thought occurred to me while you were talking, and I don't know if I'm correct at this at all, but I think almost all human beings whether it's externally applied or internally applied, believe that there's something they can't do. Like I'm just not born with that chip, so to speak, on my motherboard. I'm not good at that. I can't play the piano. I can't. And they just give up on it, I think. And I'm guilty of that as well. Do you think every person or most people could say, wait a minute, what have I surrendered to and told myself I can't do, would never succeed at? And potentially, am I the victim of a mind trap? I don't know if I'm saying it right, but kind of like a self-diagnosis. When you know you have a cold, you know it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people with mind traps may not know they have the cold.
Exactly. That's why, coming back, taking the time to reflect and coming back to really, what do you want, Mike? Why? What do we feel? Because we all feel inside of us. But take the time to feel. Take the time to understand. So what is this little voice, that you're around you, but your voice, what your inner voice is telling you, whispering to you. Listen to that. And go for it. If you think that you want to be a singer or actor or whatever it is, go for it. Because the worst scenario, it will not work. But you will learn along the way, because maybe it's your way. So you have to begin there, and in the middle of the journey, you will understand, or you will go another way because you will understand. But you have to go that way first. For example, I became a coach only a decade ago, and I never had this idea before. And I just can tell you, Mike, we were sharing that before, that it's really my calling. It's at one point, when, the first time I coached someone, I understood that, wow, it was like all my life, in fact, led me where I should be. But it took me a lot of time. And then, but you have to go to this journey. Okay, go ahead, begin the journey. Don't be afraid. You're going to find yourself. And it can be very fast. It can be longer. So really depending on the person. And that we don't know. The only thing we know is go for it.
Yeah, well said. I love that. I want to veer back toward leadership now, because as you were talking, and I you're an experienced leader in your own right. I have decades of leadership experience. And I think all good leaders recognize that their words and actions toward others often have far long-lasting ripple effects on what they said something and that person never forgot it. And I've had people tell me that, like, Mike, 18 years ago in a meeting, you said this to me, and I know you didn't mean anything by it, but it kind of made me angry, And I never forgot that. Now I'm sitting here thinking, I didn't know you took that like that. I meant it in the best light. I didn't know you've been steaming for 18 years, So where I'm going with this is I'd like you to think about and relate a little bit. We're talking to leaders now. Their ability to inflict a form of trauma and mind traps, just like that leader did to, or that professor did to your young man, and that professor did to the young woman that I'm talking about. I think all of us have ample opportunities to be a real positive force in our teammates' lives. And we also have the ability to inflict that trauma and maybe have a mind trap. We had there's no merit to it. We didn't mean it. So any advice for leaders how they can be vigilant of that potential and even more aware of how to prevent it whenever possible?
I would say that the first thing is maybe to talk a little about empathy and about mirror neurons. It's my favorite neurons. They are, the neurons that, give you the ability to imitate, so to learn. And then how, it matters as a leader is because it's more about what we do than what we say. And And to answer your question, if leader, you think about it, and if you go back to yourself, and if you think about how I want to be remembered, and really every day, you go back to that statement, and you're sure of that. The first thing I think would be listen more and talk less. Because if we talk less, if you take the time to listen, if you take the time, to understand, so empathy, to put yourself in other shoes, if you take that time, the risks are lower that you're going to say something that you didn't mean. And then I think this is the advice that I will give, really, is to make, leader understand about that and think about it, and think about, okay, I want to be here for my, my team, my people, but not with judgment, just, listening to them and trying to understand what is behind their behavior, or, what they do, whatever. But at the end of the day, we are all human beings. So sometimes we can say things because we are angry or whatever. But it's okay. But maybe if you, at one point, you're aware of it, going back to that person and say, I didn't mean it, could help this person maybe to not be locked for years. And just being aware of that as a leader, that again, it's more about what you do and less about what you say. So don't try to tell a lot, to say a lot, just show.
Yes, I like that. And I'd like to follow up with my version of that. And I call it, the euphemism I call that is serve them the entire meal. And what I mean by that is, I've been in the position where, we needed perhaps a new IT department head, or, let's use that, an IT department head. Mm-hmm. And there was somebody already in that department who was the manager, but we were scaling, $1 billion business. And we needed, what I call the full grown bear. We needed somebody from the outside who's been there, done that, prove that they can be an IT department head at the $1 billion level plus. This is not a role. We're doing so much important stuff. I can't give someone the opportunity to grow in it. I need somebody that's done it. And what I mean by giving them the whole meal, if I was only give that person the salad at the beginning of the meal, I would just say, we're going outside for a candidate because you're not qualified. Mm-hmm. That's the salad. Well, that, or I just don't see you in this role. Mm. That's the salad. But if I continue with the next course or two, it's like, look, when I say that, Joe, I mean that you're not ready now. We're looking for someone who is you 15 years from now, but we need that experience now. So you're not ready now, but you will be. And that's why we feel forced to go out and get someone that's probably older, certainly more experienced, certainly more qualified. And in a way, you should be glad we're doing this, because you're going to get a good mentor in here that will help you grow professionally. And then at some point, roles are going to open up and you have grown. This man's going to help you do it, or this woman, whoever we hire. And I'll be honest with you, there were times that I gave only the salad. Only to wish that I had given them the whole meal. And I find that when you give them the whole meal and explain, I'm not saying never, Joe, I'm saying not now, our urgency, what we're doing, big software implementation, we need the person that's already done that 12 times in the Fortune 500 space. And you don't have that experience yet. We'll help you get there, but you're not ready. I have never seen anybody react negatively to that. Because when we put out the job description for the more experienced person, they can just look at it and say, well, I have to admit, I don't check 3/4 of those boxes. I don't have that experience. So I agree. If they hire that person that has those qualifications, yes, I hope to work with this person and learn a lot. So I'm rambling right now, but I wanted to hear your thoughts about that, because I think it's important for some younger leaders to maybe consider giving the whole meal.
This is fantastic. I just love this image. I agree 100% with you, because if you don't have all the environment and the why behind that, you take it personally. I'm not good enough. But it changes everything if you say, okay, this is why, you explain why. And by the way, we are not going to fire you, or we don't forget you. You're going to learn from that person. And after, it's up to you. You accept or not. But as you say, I don't know why this person should not accept, because this is a great opportunity to learn from someone else. But at least you see that person. This is it. This is, my words would be, I see you, I hear you, and nothing, I have nothing, against you. You're a great person. I am going to prove that, because you stay here, and we're going to, get you a mentor who is going to help you to go there. And then everything changed. It's not all about me. What I did is wrong. My work is work. My work is wrong. Or I don't know how to do that. I'm too young, whatever it is. No, it's just normal. So there is an emergency. We need someone here. And so you transform something that could be negative for someone into something positive for this person.
Yes, I agree with that. Well, I want to switch gears a little bit. Hortense, you've been exposed to a lot of leaders well beyond your decade of coaching. And so I want to talk about your views on the very best leaders you've ever observed, worked with, worked for, mentored, whatever. And I'm talking about the top 10% of the top tier leaders. Mm-hmm. Have you noticed or observed that are there any traits and habits that seem to be common to the very best leaders? Mm-hmm. And if you turn that coin over, are there any traits and habits that also seem to be common to most of the, I don't want to say bad leaders, but the least effective leaders, leaders who maybe just aren't all that effective at leaders? So two sides of a coin. Do most of the very best have some traits and habits, and then do most of the very not so best? I don't want to say bad, but you get my point. So any thoughts?
Yeah, sure. So I think that my observation is the best leader are very humble, very courageous. They listen a lot, and they are eager to learn. They want to learn. They want to continue to grow. They don't think about themselves. I know everything, and shut up. No, I think they are the best leaders. It's someone who can be humble and rethink and be courageous and say, okay, I don't have all the answer, but I'm going to try to do my best to evolve. And on the other way, I would say that it's leaders who are very arrogant and don't listen to others, are not connected to others, and think that they have and they need to have all the answers. So it's really the opposite, in fact. And each time you see that, it's a lot of arrogance, is something, it's a big trigger for me.
Yes. I want to follow that up with an observation and give you a chance to opine further on it. I agree with the humility. I think it's aside from character, somebody could have impeccable character and ethics and not be humble. So I say, the bottom of the pyramid, you have to have rock solid character and integrity, or you will not last long as a leader for the most part. Some people escape, but most don't. And then the second thing is you have to be humble. You have to demonstrate that you have humility, you're self-aware, you're self-effacing. You not only can take criticism, you seek it, and you don't shoot the messenger, as they say, when somebody gives you bad news and all of that. So I love that. But arrogance, do you agree that, here's my thoughts. I think human nature is such that you don't have to be a 25-year employee in a company to recognize arrogance arrogance is something that even the youngest teammate right out of college can see, because we're talking human nature now.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people in your life and mine that we've never even have a conversation with. We met them, saw them at a restaurant or on the subway or whatever. But the way that person talked to somebody else, you could just feel them dripping with arrogance. And then we went about our life. So do you agree that that is something you can almost see and smell, so to speak?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can see.
Yeah.
See and smell. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yes.
I agree with
So my point in asking that is, much like these leaders, myself included, have to avoid mind traps and give people the whole meal and all of that. I am a very, and always have been as a leader, I am a very type A personality, very confident, very self-effacing, but I am a driven person, very self-confident. Like, of course we can do that. Come on, let's go. And I've had a few people in my life that said, well, when I first met you, Mike, now I know, but when I first met you, I mistook that confidence for arrogance. That your confidence, we can do this. Come on, let's go. Well, I mistook that for confidence, and that kind of rattled me because I worked so hard at not giving off the look of arrogance and all that. So any tips you can give to somebody, any advice you can give to somebody that they mean to be humble, they mean to give off the right impression, that fine line between confidence and aggressiveness and arrogance?
That's a very good question. I think it's, if we go back to the beginning of our conversation, if I think about my horse, it's the same. I think confidence and arrogance, it's very subtle, but also, the person with who you are. I think we need to go back to empathy there. And then you, as a confident person, be aware of the person who is in front of you. And then if you feel like this person is not confident at all, or maybe is not ready to receive your message for a reason or another, like you want to say, having the ability to understand that and just, to twist a little the way you're going to talk to this person. So just to be sure that your confidence is looking at the confidence, and not arrogance, and maybe just explain a little more. Why? Okay, yes, we're going to do it. We can do it. And maybe, add a little word all together with your help. I'm here. I don't know. It's depending on the situation. But I think, being aware of who is in front of you each time we talk is very important. So we go back to listen, empathy, put yourself in other shoes and things like that. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. Well, our time is up, Hortense, but I can't let you out of here without asking you the question I ask everybody on the show. If you were able to bring one leader back from the past and spend a day with that person, who would you choose and why?
So it's easy for me. It's Mahatma Gandhi. And why? Well, why? Because he has, for many reasons. The first one, of course, the impact that he had on his company, his country and the world is, of course, something enormous, like we say in France, something big. But more of that, he was courageous enough at the beginning, to go out of his comfort zone. He didn't, stay in London and as an attorney like he could do. So he really changed his path, or felt that he had to go to this path. I don't know. And then he spent time to understand his country, to meet his people, to understand what's going on here. And then it's along the way that he understood that he could make a difference and how he's going to help people. And then for me, it's all about leadership. It's all about, talking, listening, be there for them, and what can I do for you? And he, of course, he did a lot, more than a lot. And he did it in his specific way, so non-violence resistant. So it was his thing. It was his driver. And then if I had a chance to to talk to him, I would just love to ask him, did you know at that time that the person you was going to become? So did you understand that at that time? Did you felt that you had a huge avenir and what you're going to do is going to impact the world? Yeah. I don't know. So I would love to know that because, wow, what a destiny. And what a destiny.
Well, that's a great choice. I think you're going to be episode number 106 or 107, and I don't think anybody's ever chosen him before. But a profound choice because I'm a casual student of his, probably not as in-depth as you or many other people, but boy, talk about living a life of impact. That his name will echo in eternity. A role model in so many ways. So great choice. Thank you for sharing that with us. It prompts me to go read a little bit more about him, learn more about this unique individual. But anyway, our time is up. But before we go, I know some people are going to want your book for sure, and maybe even reach out and connect with you. How can they find your books, Hortense, and how do they reach out and connect with you?
So you can find my book everywhere on website, but the easiest way would be Amazon, I think. Amazon, you can find the book. I have also a website. So to myname.com, hortenselegentil.com, or hlgconsulting.org. Sometimes it's simple than to write my name. And of course on social, so LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you can find social.
Got it. Well, again, Hortense, it's been a fascinating episode. A lot of benefit here for myself and the audience. I don't know if you saw, I've been taking notes throughout. So I absolutely thank you for your time and your insights, and selfishly ask you to consider coming back to another episode someday.
Would love to. Thank you, Mike, for having me.
We hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Please subscribe, rate, review, and recommend to your friends. Please visit our website at fidelisleadership.com and sign up for our leadership newsletter. Until next time, remember the words of the ancient Greek philosopher Pericles.
What you leave behind is not what is engraved in stone monuments, but is woven in the lives of others.